Disney Plus Day. I'm wearing Disney Plus blue to celebrate, and welcome to my complete coverage, which will consist of 3 videos. As usual, Marvel, of all the franchises in Hollywood, has done the best and most consistent job of feeding us. And that's going to be my biggest video, which you're watching right now. And then also keep an eye out for my Star Wars coverage with their piddly but still cool announcement. And then an overall look at everything else. They had a lot of ground to cover. They got a lot of stuff on Disney Plus, and that's kind of the whole idea. All right, let's dive into what's next for Marvel on the service, which of course yesterday debuted this snazzy new header. And you can kind of see the characters that are going to be the most important going forward. But we got some new characters coming, as we got very exciting first looks at 3 upcoming shows: Moon Knight, She-Hulk, and Ms. Marvel, which should all hopefully debut in 2022, as all 3 shows are at least at some point in the filming process, if not finished. Ms. Marvel was supposed to be done. It looks done, but maybe it needs reshoots. That's going to be a tricky show to pull off. They have a lot of important things they have to do, and they're making a lot of changes to the comic. Because even though it looks done, we aren't getting it until summer 2022. That's what they announced today, although on the investor call the other day, Bob Chapek said it was a Q4 show, fourth quarter show, which means it would be, October to December. So when's it coming out? I guess we'll find out soon enough. To me, the best first look was She-Hulk. I like that quite a bit, and I was surprised at how much they showed. Wow! We got a new Daredevil-style logo, and as I told you before, Jennifer Walters will run into Matt Murdock as 2 fellow New York City lawyers. And it's funny, the new logo is more serious, yet we get a glimpse of She-Hulk herself. I can't believe they showed that. And they're going with the very popular cheesecake supermodel version of the character made popular by John Byrne. Maybe arguably the most popular version of the character ever, so I can see why they went with that. Although, it's going to be interesting. It balances with the super feminist Jennifer Walters, so maybe they can pull it off. But I wouldn't have thought that today they would have done this. But they're going for it. I actually think the original logo would have been a better fit with this version of She-Hulk. But, it's going to be great. This version of the character also famously frequently broke the 4th wall, particularly on the cover of her comics. And we all know that She-Hulk will do that within the series as well. In fact, she already did it in the first look today. And they have period costumes on, a la WandaVision, so I'll be curious to see what's going on here. I love that she says, "Don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when you're angry." When I'm angry, of course, the famous Hulk warning. And you have to wonder if maybe she's doing yoga, also shown here, to help control her emotions. Good for her. And yes, of course, that is Bruce Banner, who's also around as Professor Hulk in another shot, helping his cousin out, to explore her powers and walking her through it, what's going to trigger her. Banner was human. He couldn't transform out of the Professor Hulk. Well, actually, wasn't Professor Hulk supposed to be his ultimate existence, right? That he had evolved to that point, but he was human, full-on human, with still an injured arm in the end credit scene for Shang-Chi. Here, no injured arm. And you have to wonder, when he hulks up now, going forward, is he always going to be Professor Hulk? Will he, have that? It's interesting because that makes him more like She-Hulk. Hulk is usually out of control, a monster, but She-Hulk was kind of like the female version of Professor Hulk, right? And they both be like that. That's really crazy. And the exploration as to why would you ever go back to the other version of yourself, which of course is what She-Hulk has always been about. And I wonder if Bruce Banner will have that same discussion. That's very interesting. Now, and also, as I reported to you before, there's going to be a lot of Hulks on this show. Will they all be hot? We'll find out. We don't get a look at She-Hulk's face. They're probably still working on it. This is going to be tricky. They don't do a lot of full CGI characters in the MCU. And I think that the ones they have are okay. Thanos, right? Rocket Raccoon helps because he's covered in fur. But, Hulk is a full CGI character, but I still don't even think he's, right where you want him to be. Certainly to be, he's, I guess the VFX team in the MCU has always benefited from the fact that Hulk does, because the Universal deal has never had his own movie, so he's always a secondary character. But now that Hulks are front and center, can they withstand their CGI versions, that kind of scrutiny? It looked pretty good so far. It looked a little rubbery, but it looked pretty good. It looked very good, actually. I looked as good as I think maybe it can, which was pretty good. How do you think it looks? The suit is more like her recent ones in the comics, but with high heel sneakers. I understand why she would wear them, but that's a very strong choice where as women are concerned. And I don't know. I mean, it really plays up into like the importance of physical, her image and her look that she takes on when she becomes She-Hulk. I mean, again, that's a choice. That's a choice. I mean, it's not comfortable to run in high heel sneakers. Wearing high heel sneakers is a little bit better than high heels, but they haven't adapted them to women's sports for a reason. Let me just say that. We get also a shot of her attending some kind of party as She-Hulk, stepping out of a limo, so you can see she's tempted to be She-Hulk all the time. And again, as I said, one thing in the comics that they've explored is Jennifer Walters having this double life, a supermodel and a nerd, and struggling over which one she should feel better about. It's obviously who she actually is, but I wonder how they'll handle this. That's interesting. This look at her in normal clothes, the quote she says, "I'm just a normal lawyer," maybe not so normal. But it looks like she clearly has room for expansion. At first you're like, your suit and shoes don't fit you, Jennifer. But she's like, sometimes I like to get a little bigger. And so clearly I guess I wonder what Professor Hulk is doing these days, because we never really saw him living a life where he would go in and out of between human and hulked, right? He went full Hulk in Endgame. So this idea that she walks around, I mean, I don't know. I mean, of all the scientists in the MCU, I mean, Banner's an original science bro. Can't someone come up with expanding fabric? I mean, isn't that what Hulk's pants are supposed to be made of? Why does Jennifer Walters have to walk around in a suit that doesn't fit her? Those shoes look like really crazy, though. Really crazy. Maybe, that's She-Hulk's suit and Jennifer Walters just had to make do one day. Maybe that would make a little bit more sense. Now, the MCU has had plenty of beefcake characters to date, and it's been noticeable that they've done a lot of that with guys, but not at all with women. Yet here we're going to have our first, I think, traditionally sexy female MCU character. And I guess that makes sense that it would be She-Hulk. So we'll see how that's received. And I think it also will help out that it balances that she has this feminist alter ego. So I'm very curious to get a really good look at the show, but I think this is very promising. Next up, Moon Knight, which is also a pretty fantastic look. Very cinematic. I told you that the Hawkeye show feels a little Marvel Netflix, and I think the She-Hulk show feels a little Marvel Netflix too. But Moon Knight goes back to the cinematic element that we've enjoyed so much to date with these Marvel Disney Plus shows. They also the moon shots are very creative. I love that. I love him running across the bridge and the reflection. I love him jumping. That's his bat signal. And speaking of Batman, yes, there's a lot of Batman elements to these shots. I know some of you hate that comparison, but I didn't start it. In fact, I think a Marvel Twitter account the other day even made it itself. Crazy Batman, basically what Moon Knight is, if you want to just, dumb it down, is on full display here with a voice saying, well, it might be two different voices because this first one was higher pitched and it says, I can't tell the difference between my waking life and dreams. Maybe it's two different personalities, the character is a schizophrenic in the comics. And then we hear a very clear Oscar Isaac voice say, the voice in your head, it devours you. We got a lot of great shots of Oscar Isaac dealing with his mental illness, a conflict for the character ripped from the comics. A lot of great acting moments. I love it. That's why you hire Oscar Isaac. He looks very compelling. The face acting is impressive. And this great shot of him on that note, snapping out of perhaps one of those dreams to discover he's taken out a whole gang. That's very cool. I love the look on his face there. His suit seems to evolve with the final version looking extremely comics accurate. Who would fight crime in white? I mean, that's going to be a real pain in the butt to keep clean. We also get this shot of co-star May Calamawy being physically pulled into the darkness. And Moon Knight filmed its exteriors in Hungary and Jordan, and you can see a little bit of that flavor in some of these shots here. And it features a lot of Middle Eastern talent in front of and behind the camera, and I'm so excited to see an exploration of that corner of the world in the MCU, particularly because I've seen some great series on streaming in the past year or so that also took place overseas, which have a very distinct flavor to them and are just phenomenal. Feige has said this show will explore Egyptology, and you get a little hint of that already here. This is a fantastic development after Kingo was just introduced into the MCU in the Eternals film. And of course, Miss Marvel is coming. And we have a little first look at her as well, her show. Love this Captain Marvel display. I love it as much as Kamala. And I think it's very important to have Pakistani American culture highlighted in a family show like this. And Iman Vellani, by the way, I wasn't sure at first when she was cast, But here in these shots, she seems very much like the comic book version of the character who was beloved by everyone who read that comic, including myself. The series looks explosive. I think this joke about the sight gag with the cheerleader sign is very funny. And that's the Circle Q blowing up, which is where her friend Bruno works, and is like a hangout for them frequently in the comics, and I'm sure on the show. Well, obviously, maybe not after that. We also see some shadowy figures, friend or foe. A lot of Kamala's contemporaries, like her friends in high school, get dragged into the action in the comics. You know, friends in high school and also people in her community, so that'll be interesting to see how they do that here. And Kamala does a test run of her powers, offering up further proof that they have indeed been changed. As I told you that I certainly was the first to tell you she was going to be a genie. So they've been changed, and you can see, you know, they save a little money here. I'm not sure if this looks Marvel Netflixy or cinematic. I think it's kind of right now somewhere in between. But you can see her, looks a little Disney Channel-y actually. But anyway, you can see her running in the reflection of that building. You know, it's a little cheaper to do it that way than show her do it outright. Maybe they will show her do it outright. Maybe the VFX just aren't ready on that yet. But she's running on purple discs that she's creating. And, you know, she never did that in the comics. That is a very clear change. She, as I said, is a genie. The power comes from her bracelet, which is a family heirloom, and it's a purple energy. So is she like a purple Green Lantern? But then what's happening here? You know, obviously we need to have the actual rules of her powers established. And the purple energy is now reflected in the logo. They're going full purple energy. Other big announcements. That's right, there's more. Sure enough, Marvel is leaning heavily into animation as they promised. What If only turned out okay for them, but this is pretty promising stuff. Speaking of What If, which has season 2 coming, that was you know, they got a nice little logo for that. Many of us felt the zombie episode there didn't go far enough, but now we're getting a whole zombie series. A new generation of heroes battle against an ever-spreading zombie scourge. That's gonna be fun. I'll be curious to see if they're like totally new heroes or we get, you know, like Young Avengers in here. It'll be interesting. Same director as What If, Brian Andrews. I thought he did a wonderful job directing the first series, so very good with action. And the zombies, you know, Marvel zombies have been very popular in the comics. So this happening, this becoming a reality, gives me hope that we shall someday see Deadpool kills the Marvel universe, or Marvel Cinematic Universe is what we want. Maybe Deadpool will even show up here. What's taking so long? Then we also have the animated series Spider-Man Freshman Year. It's the first original Spidey content from Disney Marvel, although Sony might be involved in some capacity. They certainly had to approve it. But another origin series? You know how Spider-Man Homecoming hit the ground running? Well, now they're going to do his origin again. I hear this is what happened before Homecoming and how Tom Holland's Peter Parker became Spider-Man. I'm a little tired of teen Peter Parker, to be honest with you. In the comics, he was only in high school for 3 years originally. Of course, he spent a lot more time there when they did the Ultimate Spider-Man comic, which the new Spider-Man is very much based on. But hopefully, as Tom Holland gets older, everybody, all his fans loving him so much, will finally force Marvel to tell some adult Peter Parker live-action stories. And animated. That's why we all loved him so much in Into the Spider-Verse, the Jake Johnson version of the character. It was great. Nice change of pace. Also, we get a continuation of the popular X-Men 90s show. Some people wondered if it would, you know, be a current thing just from the same team. No, it's going to pick up right where that show left off, probably adapt some more comics, which would be, I think, very exciting. Age of Apocalypse, maybe? Did they ever do that on the 90s show? But anyway, they have a slight design tweak to some of the characters. They modernize them a little bit. For instance, Jean Grey, no more ponytail. But they look fantastic. The female characters in particular got their looks updated a little bit more. I'm excited for more Rogue and Storm stories, characters who, even Jean Grey, not done very well in the live action. The 90s series got a whole generation into the X-Men, and this show will not only bring those fans back, but maybe get a whole new generation into these characters just as they get ready to enter the MCU. And Feige choosing to focus on the classic versions of the X-Men via this series is very promising for him adapting those versions of the characters for the MCU when they do show up. New logos. Agatha, House of Harkness. We knew an Agatha Harkness show was coming, but that's the official title. What's the House of Harkness? Is it her coven? That sounds very cool. Ironheart, with a cool actual Ironheart in the logo. Riri Williams, of course, will debut in Black Panther 2. Will she be the new Shuri? Because Letitia Wright is causing so many problems behind the scenes. Letitia Wright doesn't even want to be Black Panther beyond one movie. So, you know, does she even still want to be Shuri? That'll be interesting to see what happens. Then we have a new Secret Invasion logo. Well, it morphed like a Skrull into the Skrull colors. And wow, Nick Fury loses the eye patch. Why would he ever have covered up that shiny blue eye? I mean, it's so cool. It's glowing, right? I mean, maybe this is something that happens, a development during Secret Invasion. And he's like, oh, right, this is nice. Echo is confirmed to be coming. We all knew that was coming, but now it has a logo. That's a Hawkeye spin-off. Lots of Daredevil characters will show up in that show. Of course, Echo is the adopted daughter of Kingpin. She, again, will debut in the Hawkeye show right around the corner. And also shout-outs for I Am Groot. What's he doing there? He looks so cute. And the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, of course, is coming too. So what looks best to you? And what do you think of the first looks? Share your thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.